When I saw a character with a very French-sounding name, the last thing I expected was for them to speak in the most distinctive American accent. Take a look at Croissant. Boss, found this here hiking tasty thing lying around. You wanna bite? You ask me, the only thing second to good gear is good food. That sounded so crap. I'm sorry to all Americans out there. I'm not saying that this is a bad thing. I was just surprised. Now that makes me think, is there even a nation in Arknights that's based off of France? Anyway, that's not the point. In this video, we'll take a closer look at Croissant's kit and determine if she is worth building. As of the recording of this video, she is currently a certificate operator as part of the standard banner. Croissant is a 5-star defender working for Penguin Logistics. When comparing her to other defenders of the same archetype, her stats are pretty average. Croissant has the second highest attack of 5-star defenders in this archetype, just below Liskarm. However, this stat is not as important for most defenders because all they do is mostly defending, so therefore attack doesn't really matter. But when it comes to defense, she is the 5th highest of all defenders. If that's not impressive enough, Croissant's talent has a 20% chance of making her temporarily invincible by resisting all physical and arched attack, and operators in the 4 adjacent tiles will receive half the effect. The resist mechanic mentioned here might be a little confusing to some people. Basically, resist is a mechanic in which the operator nullifies any incoming damage. It works similarly to dodge, but the main difference here is that when an operator resists an attack, it still counts as a hit. Therefore, operators with defensive recovery SP are still able to charge their skill. Skill 1, Auto Defense, increases Croissant's defense and the chance of proccing her talent to 170%. In other words, that's 1.7 times its original value at level 7. Now this last bit of information here is important. Of the current value means you multiply the skill modifier 170% by the talent's current value 20%. So the calculation would be 1.7 times 0.2 and you'll get 34%. So instead of having a 20% chance of resisting attacks, Croissant will have 34% of resisting attacks. The one downside of this skill is the fact that you have no control of its activation. So you may run into problems where the skill is still charging when you need it the most. Despite its unpredictable nature, the skill does get significantly better at Mastery 3. The defense buff goes up to 70%, which is pretty good, and the talent activation chance doubles to 40%. And best of all, significantly improve its uptime from 52% to 62%. Skill 2, Magnetic Hammer, is rather peculiar as Croissant pushes away enemies in all directions, stuns them for a few seconds, and also deals massive amounts of damage. This skill serves the same pushing role as Shaw and Feater, and the stun lasts for pretty long, 3.5 seconds at level 7. That's longer than Texas Skill 2, which is only 3 seconds even at Mastery 3. The damage multiplier is pretty impressive and very effective against a group of enemies, but I see several issues with this skill, even more than Skill 1. Firstly, the multi-directional push caused by the hammer is a double-edged sword. When used correctly, it's really good at stalling enemies and works just as well as a pusher specialist. But when the enemy is behind Croissant, she will push the enemy even further back and possibly into the blue box and ruin your whole run. Secondly, this is a defensive charging skill, meaning the only way to charge it up is for Croissant to get hit. Because it relies on the flow of the enemies, the downtime is inconsistent. And even if she is getting battered by enemies constantly, you would have to wait for quite a little bit until the skill is fully charged before you take the kill, which is not the most optimal playing style for some players. Mastery 3 enables Croissant to push enemies to oblivion, which is incredible because only a few operators can do that. To demonstrate how strong this pushing power is at Mastery 3, I enlisted Weedy to do this experiment for me, because I don't have Croissant at Elite 2 yet, and I couldn't find one in the support unit. As you can see, great pushing power is strong enough to push enemies with weight level 3. Maybe not that much. So it seems that Croissant tried to fulfill the role of a support, a defender, and a pusher. But I think she should just be a defender because clearly she is way more qualified in that department. So with all that being said, should you spend your precious materials on Croissant? My answer would be maybe. Croissant's defender capabilities are not bad at all. The only thing that prevents her from being a top tier defender is not being able to control her skill 1 activation. And not to mention that Quora is already a very good defender as a 4-star operator and she is way cheaper to deploy. As for being a pusher, well, she can't be deployed on range tiles, which already limits her deployment capabilities. And compared to an actual pusher, they cost less to deploy and their skills are better equipped for pushing enemies. But not all hope is lost because she works well at stalling enemies, and her talent is pretty useful in certain situations. As for me, if you ask what's the best way to use Croissant, I'll just go to my local bakery and ask for a freshly baked croissant in the morning. That is the best way to enjoy Croissant.